Let's get the show on the road. How's everybody doing tonight? It's 8 p.m. and it's Monday, which is odd because I'm not usually here on Monday, but we won't be here tomorrow. I guess this week we'll do Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So we'll do a little bit uh, every other day this week because of the election. I wanted to take Tuesday off. Everybody hear me okay out there? And I'll get you caught up on what I've been working on this weekend. I'm going to take a little train ride because that's probably the easiest way to show you guys. If you were here on Friday, then you saw me place a ton of track because that's pretty much mostly what I did on Friday. And the track that we placed pretty much started. I thought I was going to stream a bit over the weekend too, but I was on and off, wasn't feeling that great half the time. My eye had a flare up of iritis, and I've been trying to rest it in between, so it wouldn't have been very good to stream. However, I feel pretty good tonight, so we're going to get on with the show here. And this is where the train used to go to the right, if you guys remember. We built up the bridges to cross over, and I did a little bit of terrain work to match, and we'll take a little bit of a ride. I also been working on the train splines, which are forever a pain in the butt to do. We'll do a little bit of that later. But you can see the terrain actually matches around the tracks now where we're going here. And I did a lot of the mountain work, which we'll take a stop in on this side of the mountain as well. I did a ton blending in the mountains with the other side. A little bit of leveling out, different thing. All around here is pretty much leveled. We'll add more detail to the terrain later, but you can see we actually have mountains on this side, which was a lot of what I did this weekend. We have to do more. You can see I left off down right about here, and it goes into the unfinished part. But the train spline is not even finished, but I got quite a bit of it. As you can see, we're going to take a loop around. There's a little bump here and there that I got to work out. You'll notice I just hit one. If you saw that, the train came up off the track. They're so difficult to work with, especially around the turns, but it's looking pretty good. So we actually have quite a bit. Badzilla, thank you for the host. The alerts aren't working again apparently, but I caught that in chat. I apologize for anybody if I miss your follows or anything. But here we are. Train spline is starting to go in all the way around, and eventually we'll exit where I haven't even tested beyond up this little hill over here, so this is the first time for me riding up this part, and you can see I'm going to go through a little bit of the terrain because it isn't even leveled there yet, and but we're getting there. This I probably have, just doing the spline for this train, probably 20 hours this weekend already, and I don't have it finished because it's such a time-consuming pain in the butt. One of my least favorite things to do. It wouldn't have been too exciting to watch, but you can see where it's going. We have a long train ride on this rail, that's for sure. And we can see some of the mountains on the other side as well have been redone. So the train pretty soon we're going to run out of rail, and you'll see the train just take a turn off the tracks. I think I did this hill, but I have to bring it up to we have to level off all the terrain around here as well. And wow, I did more than I thought. We're almost there. I think it's about 2/3 done. The train rail for the first train out of 3, so you could imagine the time that's going to have to be put in. I'm pretty sure right after we go around this corner we're going to lose the track because I left off over here somewhere on this straightaway. But there is definitely a lot of land going to be covered by this train. We might even try to see if we can make it go a little bit faster. It's probably going to get a little bumpy over here. It's not too bad, but this is where I've been smoothing out through this area. See, there we are. We're off the rail. Then we went back down. A lot of little adjustments that have to be made when you're doing the splines along the way. And then I have to go back, ride the rails, and see where it lifts off like it is on the hills right here. So this part here is where I've been working. Now it's going down. And it just needs more nodes put in the spline. And now we're leaving the track. It's following a line. And yes, you can ride the train under the terrain if it so goes that way. It's looping back to where I have to meet up, which is way... This is all the spline that has not been done yet. It might resurface. It might go deeper into... Yay, we're floating. So it's got a long way to go. As you can see, we got to do all this loop. Yeah, it's quite funny to take a train ride, and then it's going to cut right through the mountain. This is a interesting trip because it gives you a top-down view when you're way underground. We could do a Space Mountain type thing under the ground. Eventually it'll come out, and we'll be back on the same loop. So I got a lot of spline. Here we go. We're coming out. We're under sunflowers. It shouldn't be going here. And then hit a sign. There, we're back on the track. So I got to get it all the way back to that point. And it's getting closer. This map is going to be one heck of a 4X map. It's pretty big. Going to have 3 big train runs. You can see we'd still be on the train loop for this train, but we're going to make them useful with silos along the way and places. Well, that will cover when we get there. But that is the beginning. I wanted to show you guys too as well the road point of view and what we put in, how the terrain looks and blends in with the surrounding terrain. We don't have foliage planted yet, and I have done quite a bit of work on that mountain. A lot of it had to be leveled across the top, so you'll see as we get up here, this is all old stuff. But I wanted to make sure it was pretty much a seamless transition into the new areas. So you guys are probably all familiar with going up this hill here on Goldcrest Valley. But when we get up toward the top, we'll go around this corner. And this pass right here is all new. So I had to take out some of this field, a very small... This field actually is a little bit smaller. It's not bad. And I do have to redraw a lot of the terrain around here, do some smoothing. You can see some bumps here, but I did a rough first pass on this train hill where it goes off. This is where it'll be coming back. It'll be coming back through here, but all we had to lose was maybe about from here to here at this one field, and we've got a lot more area because this was all raised up to meet. There's a larger flat area on the top here. It's a little bit sloped down, but there's a lot more green area up here than there used to be because we filled in the whole trench that was over here. It used to drop down quite a bit. Now it's raised up, comes right around. Once we get some trees back in, it'll look pretty good. I'm holding up traffic. Go a little bit further, and then we got the other bridge, which is the exit bridge, which we did test. You can get underneath it. But what I did also back here is we need more entrances and exits to the outside part of the map, so I drew in a little road well, it'll be here, but it'll be adjusted and stuff as time goes on. And we can see that you can come right down inside the new area. The track's been leveled right through. And doing the mountains was quite a chore, but it's coming out exactly how I planned it. We've got a little ledge that the train drives up on here with multiple layers down below, and we'll have some trees planted in the grassy areas. And then I stopped right here, so we got to level out that area over there as well. Lots more, and we haven't even begun doing the spline on this track. This is from the train that comes from the other direction. So it's starting to get there. It's going to be a whole new world out here. Let me go into the editor for now and show you guys basically some of the techniques to do all this stuff, because it's a lot of repetition. No matter how much I did over the weekend, there's definitely going to be much more to show you. And we'll start off with those dreadful splines, train splines. Let me wait for this thing to close down. Alright, jumping into the editor, which is open. You will see that is where I left off pretty much on the train spline. We talked a little bit about the train system 01 spline right here. You have to highlight it and check the visibility to on, little visibility checkbox, in order to be able to edit the spline. And I am under the assumption that most people know how to do splines. They just, when they realize how it's done, it's such a pain in the butt, they think that there's gotta be an easier way when there isn't. So basically you got all these little nodes here, and we want to get the nodes so you can see I placed the line just so it's on the surface of the track. That's exactly where the train needs to be. One thing you can do is with the arrow keys on the keyboard, you can go backwards through the nodes and forwards through the nodes, which when you're doing a track this size is going to be very helpful. So you can select the last node in line and making adjustments. Now, the funny thing about these is, you see how it rises up? Whenever you adjust one, the ones on either side of it also adjust slightly, and I wonder if I can get over here and give you guys an idea in no man's land. Let's grab this one here, and alright, so we have, I'm going to insert key gives you another little node, and basically what I do is I take and I drag the blue nodes that it makes onto the track. Now it doesn't look, what you got to do once you have the nodes placed is you have to keep inserting new ones and placing them and adjusting them, dragging it to the center of the track, and when you finally have enough new ones, you will get closer and closer to where the line meets your little blue dot. Now we'll move one over there, and you can go back through, like I said, jump back through this section. I should be working down the railroad a little ways, but you'll notice that as we're doing this, whoops, where did I go with that thing? Did I go the wrong direction? Sometimes you lose your marker. As you're doing this, you can get closer and closer to where that node is on the center of the line, but you also have to bring them down, every one. And if you notice when I'm bringing this down, it usually bends the one that's in between. Basically it's just a constant job of adjusting your nodes to where you want them, center it in the track, and adding new ones. So let's get back over here where I left off, and we'll do some more of this crazy hill. Hills are always much more fun actually. They're a lot more difficult than the straightaways when we get to them. We can usually get away with fewer little nodes on the spline when we're doing a straightaway. But we'll go back to where we were. You can see where it's slightly below the track. You just got to keep pulling them up. And when you have big transitions, just add a node, bring it up to the level. Make sure you're always pretty much centered. You got to eyeball the train. I could notice that there's a little bit of weirdness going on right here where it jogs a little bit, so definitely some adjustment. It could be that it is going up and down, left or right a little bit too far, but it's constant adjusting of these, and it's not always easy to get them exactly where you want. So yeah, I would say splines like these, most people don't get that involved. It's much easier to copy a whole train that's from another map already positioned properly and not go through all this, but definitely worth the time when you finally can drive your train on your own track where you want it to go. So when you're going up a hill like we are here, you want to definitely make a lot of extra nodes in between and just make sure it's touching the surface. You'll see how it's a little bit below here, and it's just going back and forth, making sure that what you've already done is good. And sometimes to get a better idea, you got to jump way ahead back here, because when I'm way back on this spline getting it ready to where it has to be, you can see it's already interfering with the ones I've already placed. So getting roughly where you want to be a little bit ahead, going back, adding some splines, and just keep on repeating until it's exactly where you want it. Thank you, Badzilla. It is going to be quite incredible when it's done. If we ever get there. Now, it will take time, but so you notice I'm just moving a little bit ahead, getting some of that lined up, and then I got to go back here. You'll see that one of the things to note are when your dots are way off the track, then that's usually where you need to add more, and then eventually they start to merge together. We want to bring that down, so we'll put an insert. You just need more of these nodes to make the transition between those levels. Same way around curves. So you'll notice I'll insert another one down here, and we'll get the line back up, and it takes several of these nodes added in when you're doing either transitions up and down or around little turns. And sometimes you just have to go back and adjust one of the previous ones, and we're getting to where closer to where we want. I think we need to put one in here. Basically, you know your spline is pretty darn close to where it has to be when your dots, your blue dots there, moving the red dots can be done as well, but that really, I try to stick to the blue ones. The red ones kind of make things go a little bit haywire. But you know you're getting close when the dots start to meet up with the line itself. So you can see we're a little bit off there. Got to center it up on the track. Move down this way again. And from this point, we'll start adding more nodes in here and readjusting them to the track level. Not a lot of interesting, but a lot of work. I will say that. Getting these exactly so your train's not bouncing up and down or all over the place can take tons and tons of time. And you could see a perfect example of what happens, and I'll show you. You notice as I'm looking down this train, we've got that one node there that is way up off the track, and you got a loop. That's where one of the train will actually rise up off the rails. So there's definitely a lot more space between this node and that one than the previous ones. We'll bring that back down and then add in one here to bring it back up a little bit. And just keep on adding them. It's not fun, especially with the size of the tracks that I have here. Whoops, went the wrong way. But it can be done. So we'll get a little bit more of this out of the way. This is literally a process that's going to take for the three track. Now, also we have all this new roads. So traffic splines work the same way as these do for placing anyway. You got to get centered on each of the lanes of the road and do your traffic splines. And we have tons of new road, tons of railroads, so I'm going to be doing probably a good 2 weeks worth of just splines this time. A lot of times, if you notice my maps, when I extended them out, I didn't do a lot of extra traffic because it is a time-consuming thing, but this time I want to take that extra step on every single part of the map and only cut corners if I have to. And get it all right, you know? So we're going to add in these splines no matter how long it takes. Bob Austin 123, thank you for the host. What is Amaki saying now? This makes me want to go sing. Train, train, take me. Yeah. I've been singing, I've been working on the railroad. It has to be centered and just above the ties, and that exactly is where the train splines need to be. Centered, and there's no marker to tell you where center is, so you got to have a pretty good eye, and you really got to look at it from the straight on angle to know that it's centered as well. Sometimes it gets a little bit weird. And where's the next node is way back here. Now bring it down so it's just popping. You can see the line just right where this node is, just above the tie, but it's sinking in between this one and that one. It's a long, so I hit the insert button and I keep working my way back, and then I can pull this one up so it's just above the tie, that it's where the point is. I'm not concerned back here, but also if you have too long of a run between nodes, you'll get a bow because it's like a curve. So putting a couple extra along this area will take out the bow as well. You can see I could bring it down a lot closer here. If you start to insert a node and you notice as soon as you grab this green arrow, it's going into the tie, then you know you've got enough there in that section, and you can just continue to work your way back and not worry about down there anymore. So we're pretty good there. but we're still starting to sink back underground over here, and that's because it's a pretty long stretch. So pull it back up, and you can see how far away the blue dot is still too from the line, which tells me that there definitely is going to be a lot more nodes in here to get them close together. And just every now and then make sure you're going straight down the track. So that node made it so I can pull this up a little bit closer, but the blue node is still quite a ways down. If we add another node in over here and raise this one up, then move back again, we can get it a little bit closer. You might want to go back to this one because they are curves. And whoops, where is it? It's way back there. So if you have a big section like this that's way off, just moving this slightly is going to start messing with all of the what we've done already. So we'll have to bounce in and put a couple extra nodes in there to make sure it's straight. And it's a process. We have to go from here, which is a long way, all the way around. I've got it kind of stretched out in some places, and then back over here. But you can see all I've done from here all the way over. This has all been done. It might need a few little adjustments here and there, but we're getting there. So you can imagine at this pace, and you can see now we gotta start lowering again. And from this angle, it looks absolutely terrible. But it's add nodes, back up. You'll see that a lot of these new ones are floating, so keep on adjusting. And work your way around the track. And in time, you will get to where you have to be. Ooh, excuse me. Too much Pepsi today. Keep myself going. But you can see as I drag it, the blue dot there is getting closer to the track. But as we add nodes, it's a little bit under here, so we'll keep bringing it up to the surface where we are. That works. And then throw another one in. Pull that up to the surface. And we're still dipping down a little bit where that last node right here is. So just keep working around your railroad track. You will get it. And I will be doing this. I could do it the rest of the night if I wanted to, but you guys would be probably logging off in a minute. So we're going to take a look at a couple of the other things in just a minute that I had to do, and a couple new techniques as well that have to do with all this fun stuff. And where is that last? You could see it's bending quite a bit, so I got to find that node way back here. It's probably too far away. See, see how that looks? I thought it was way back here, and yet when I bring it up to the track level, it's way up. I mean, visually, these things can be really confusing in the 3D space when you're looking at them. So it's hard to tell unless you look at all different angles where you are. I mean, look, I'm looking straight down the track. The blue dot looks like it's perfectly centered, but just moving a little bit off, look where it looks like it is. So until you get it close, it'll look like it's jumping all over. And adding more nodes is what helps you get it closer and closer to where it has to be, and leveling it down. We could obviously see it's too high here, so it's start rough draft, get it close to where it's supposed to be, add some more nodes, and just keep working it in. Work it in. And then because your heights are all out of whack, you get the you get the nodes here that are floating way above the ground level. Got to bring those down. And then when you bring them down, you look and say, wow, that's nowhere near centered. So just keep on working it. It's a process. Like I said, not a fun one, but a necessary evil. Howdy, KW. Glad to see you out there. We're doing a little bit more of PV17 work. Train splines. We have all these awesome long train tracks. Need to have some splines. So here we are. Engine number 9. And as you can see, as we added some other splines down this way, it sunk back into the ground over here just a little bit. So as the further you get away from a section you're editing, the more locked in, I guess you could say, it would be. That you don't have to keep going back to the area and making those little adjustments, but checking it out every now and then isn't gonna hurt either. Just down the track a little bit. And seeing your blue dot get a little bit closer and closer to the line, once it's right on it, you're pretty good. And so yeah, the straightaways you could get away with a lot less nodes, but do keep in mind, again, that as you're doing these, there's a curve to in between nodes all the time. So if you get them too far away, it may not be noticeable here, but you'll put one in between and you could still drag this down to just a little bit. You want to make sure you get enough points in there so those curves aren't there. And flatten it out. Alright, so I've showed you guys pretty much enough for splines right now. Next thing I wanted to do is give you guys a little bit of a tip on the creation of the mountains and how I went about. We got some more areas to do. So we'll discuss a few extra tools here as well. First thing is flat piece of track is at 96, up here, 106 is my Y translation. So I'm going to take my replace translation and put it at 106 and turn my terrain editing tool and on to replace, give myself a pretty big circle. Now, one of the things I wanted to show you, because it's very, very handy, is that there is, let me see if I can find it here, there is a replace limit function right here that is, when you're doing things like that, like I'm doing right now, use this replace limit, and basically what it does is limit to lower, means that if I go into this mountain area over here accidentally, it's not going to harm it because I'm only replacing what's lower. And when doing these leveling jobs off, that comes in so handy because I'm not going to start losing everything I already did trying to level this track out. So remember to use your replacement limit when you're doing these types of things. And that is also very handy for carving out your tiers. And let's get this leveled out a little bit further till the track starts to go back down. And leveling things in between tracks, for instance, too. You can see that one up there is at pretty high 106 it is. And we have another track running alongside right here that is obviously a lot lower. It's at 90, should be at 96-ish. 96. So when I'm going over here, I'm not redoing what I already did, but I'm bringing this track up to level, and it's going to drop down. We'll work on this area a little bit. But that helps you get these gaps out of here too. You know, you just fill them in and you're not worried about what you already leveled. Now we have a divot on this that I definitely is in the straightaway. You can also do a replace upper, but that would pull these mountains down. But if I was down here, I could change the replace upper and it'll just replace, it won't replace this level, just what's above it. I'm not going to worry about it because the randomness of this level stuff actually is kind of cool, just drawing it in roughly. We have a pretty big difference between in a short area. And I'm not saying that this is the final way to do it, but this is how I get started with everything, is get the levels adjusted. I mean, once we have it nice and smooth all the way around, we can go back and we can put ridges in and all that fun stuff, that smaller ridges such as little things they usually have around, like the main farm has several around it too. But the small area ridges, there's a lot of mountains in this, so there's not a ton of ridges. But we can go back and add in a lot more of the little terrain detail afterwards. The main key right now is to get all this stuff blending nice and smoothly and keeping our roads intact. So once you have several levels, you can, in this area, actually I got the replace lower. Then we have the city there that's right on the ground. We'll get to the big transitions in a little bit. But you work your way around in between the levels, and then if you want to also, you can do a much more gradual. When you're using the let's see, we'll grab this level for instance. Whoops. And we know that's 96, that one's 106. You can go halfway in between, like 100. Make this 100, and you could do a little bit more gradual in here to make it smooth a little bit easier. But if you're gonna do a large area, just my method is make your circle as big as you can without interfering with either side. Make sure your values are all at 1 when you go to smooth, and you'll get a really quick smooth between the levels. And you can see, just be careful not to get too close at this point to either of the tracks, or you'll start smoothing and pulling up the land underneath them. So if you're too close, you'll mess them up, but you'll get a pretty good transition just by keep going back and forth. It'll smooth it out even more and more to make the transition between those. Now, what I was saying, and I did actually back further about the transition, adding in some, I'm not going to mess with here until I level that off, but where this track is back here is a perfect example of me adding these little ledges on both sides, so, and then painting them up so that adds a little bit of cool terrain detail to around that area. Alright, The other areas, like these little ramps, they're a lot more delicate, but we need to do them anyway. So we'll get a reasonable size circle that isn't going too far out, but we want it pretty big so we have room to smooth on the edges. Next, I like for this all my values to be at 0.3, and then you set your left mouse button to add, and you can see we can pull up just by tapping the left mouse button the terrain underneath that rail, and where we can bring it out a little bit so that we have some room to smooth with. And I'm not concerned about getting it up above because the smoothing process in between the layers will take care of that, but getting it so that it's up there, and it's a little tricky here because this area is right up against the city, so let's just get it up. And you might have to, like I am, start cutting into the lower level, which is quite alright. Now this is again another one of those processes. We'll go back to the smooth tool, and we're going to keep it on the 0.3, so the smooth back down is very gradual. And notice I'm working on this side because I know this side, if I was to hit it, it's so close to this that it will eat it away underneath the track here where I don't want to. So we'll back that up. If I'm working from this side and I work my way in, that side over there is staying pretty good. And it's just a matter of getting the terrain back to where you want it. And taking close looks, you see how we're floating a little bit there. Once we get to a good happy point, which we're getting close, smooth out what you can without messing up what you just did. And I'm using the same 0.3 values because I want it to be a little, when I'm working right around the railroad track, I don't want to have sudden jumps in my terrain smoothing. When you get to the area over here that we really botched up, there's not much you could do. We'll get this, it's going to take a little bit more work, but we'll get this back down a little bit level. When you're working in the small areas, you're going to have this happen. And it's a matter of going back. Let's get a little bit smaller circle. We'll put it back on add and just keep filling in from this side. Get the gaps back filled in, and you might even have to extend out here a little bit, and don't worry about what's below yet. Got to fill in all these little gaps, and then keep repeating till it looks good all the way down on both sides. You can see it's yeah, the more you have on this off to the sides, it's just a little bit more tough here because I don't have a lot of room over here to work with. So as soon as I touch the track in this area, it's dropping down. So I'm going to fill in, and the city looks pretty nasty right now, but it's not gonna when we're done, because that's easy to fix later on. The important thing is making sure the track up here looks good, and it's bouncing back and forth. A little bit of add in here. I'm going to go with a little bit smaller circle too because I'm pulling down just this one area. And we can see we're off the ground right here. And check it on both sides. You'll see where you're a little bit low. And that is pretty close. Now this mess here is not exactly the prettiest thing, but what we're going to do is we're going to take our values and give it really sharp value again. I'm going to take the ground height that we were at. Whoops. It does that. Sometimes it got a left control R and select replace. We should have the ground level. Come on. Let's see if that works. To draw in, nope, it didn't grab my ground. See, sometimes I gotta do that and then delete it and then pick the ground level. There, now we're good. So, slope limit, remove that, but we're gonna go to limit higher so we don't mess up. And we're just gonna carve this back out, and we'll have one of those nice jagged edges down here dropping out. Eventually, we have some work to do on this level for sure, but we'll get it back off this. For now, there you go. So one of the things you can do at this point with this, well, we still got a little bit of work to do, but that's because, see how quick that went down? Because I have these values cranked back up. Let's go back and try to get them filled in a little bit better. Again. I actually have quite a bit of the track under ground here. And that's the tricky part. See how we just eat away. We could extend out by grabbing the height here as well. Let's see. This is a pretty flat area. If this, nope, wrong way. Control R. And let's get a little bit more hair here. Take off our replace limit. And actually, that's what was going on before. So we'll get it a little bit wider up here. Very tight area on this edge. Gonna take a little while. See how when it gets too close to the edge, it just goes right down because you're smoothing between the two layers. Now, in the beginning, for beginners, you can actually, if you don't like what you did, that looks okay. Depends how actually picky you are too. I mean, with the, I'm pretty pleased with that. But in the beginning, you could actually run a wall along the side to hide edges as well. If it gets to be too much for you. You just put like a big cement wall right on this edge and hide the dropping off or some stuff. Yeah. Then it doesn't really matter how bad it looks down here. Cover it with something. I've done a lot of that in the past. That is pretty good. Now what I will do from here is very carefully, I'm going to take a very small circle. That looks pretty good. And my right mouse button is subtract. And I'm going to just cut into this hill without messing up above to give it a little bit more detail of rockiness. And I'm hitting it pretty low so I don't mess up the top. And then from this point on, you want to do something with the paint. Set your slope limit to, we'll do it at 45 because 45 seems to be good. Add mountain rock. Crank up my values to 1 again. And then we can paint this in and we'll get a, because we added those little areas, we kind of get a little bit of randomness to where the grass pokes through, and it looks like the rest of the map. So once we have that done, we can start working on the transition with the big smooth tool. Whoops, let's put it on smooth and start getting that track. Then you have this kind of weird corner that blends right in, and we'll figure out what to do with the landscape later. But that's basically every little piece that you see around here has to be done the same way. We have to bring this out to here. With the mountain face, again, I did a lot of, once I had it cut down to about where I want, and you can see I had to pull the trees off quite a bit of it. We can do the pretty good smooth on this side. And then once I had it smoothed out to a decent, what I think is a decent sized mountain and where I want it to go, I just went in here and we'll take the values, we'll take a little bit smaller circle, and again just cut out some of these flat levels that you see. Now we don't want divots, and if I held my mouse button you'll see I get a pretty big divot. So I'm just tapping, and then what I'm going to do again is smooth over it again. Once we have several of them in there, we'll go and we'll smooth them up a little bit with a little bit bigger, and just touch them actually, and you'll get the rough edges and the divots out of them, and you'll get a little bit of texture to the side of the hill that starts to look relatively random when you paint it up. So let's paint it, and you could readjust. I mean, do it to your liking. The more time I take on it, the better it usually looks. But we'll paint it up over here, and we'll get some of those grass areas on the slopes. Not as many because I didn't, but they're right where the divots that we dropped in. You could see how they're giving me a little bit of flat area. You can make like a shelf like I did over here, longer shelves, by doing several layers down, but it's entirely up to you. Now this mountain is we're going to work on that side another day because that's a huge transition. So what I have to do here is, well, I can start it because every time I see certain things I just have to do them. You know how that goes. Save button, just a reminder. I've been pretty good, the editor, but I will do a save. Thanks. You still think there should be something on the other side of the bridge? There may be. Like I said, this is just rough landscaping right now. I'm doing a save. It's always good to save. I haven't had any editor crashes yet, so I'm getting kind of cocky, and then eventually it's all going to go right out the window. Yeah, looks like fun to jump off of. There's a lot of work that gets into the transition between this level and down there. So, but I already did it pretty close on the other side. It's the amount of room I left myself. Once it's done saving, which is seeming to be quite the long... There we go. First thing is removing the treetop mountains because we're going to utilize, yeah, the the mountain trees on the top. I'm going to bring them back. We will, at another point when it's tree planting day, we'll look at putting all the trees back on the mountain. But right now, if I left them all, they'd just be floating in the air. They'll be buried in the terrain. So I got to go down this whole side, and the more I take off toward this side, the flatter, the lower I can actually bring the mountain down. So I will pull several of them off of here. And if I can lower, it doesn't have to, we got to bring it height-wise down quite a bit, or we'll have a huge cliff. So we will go through and drop out lots and lots of trees. Now this is the highest part of all the hills on the other side of the map are going to be a lot easier. So once we get past this, I'm happy with there. We're going to start sloping it down. And it's basically very similar to what we've been doing, just being careful not to mess up what's down below on the other side, because we're going to take away some of it, but we don't want to have to redo all of the map that's down there. It would be awful. So next would be, let's see, I like the level. Let's get the replace tool. Replace, please. My mouse has really been bad lately. I need to get a new one. I'm going to take the level that's right here, which is definitely a lot lower, and if I can get it to read, which, there we go, we're going to just do the same thing that we did on the other side, but I'm going to chop off a lot of this mountain. And we're going to work into the replace lower limit. And I'm going to, what are we at, 170? Let's make a little bit smaller circle. And we'll bring it down to 160. And we'll replace the low, oh, we can't replace it. We got to do replace all because I want to cut this back a little bit too. We're just going to make several transitions down to the lower level. It's still going to be pretty big hill here, as you can see, unless I decide to take more off the top. But we'll decide that when we get down to the bottom. Let's go replace lower. What level are we down here? Actually, this track runs. That's pretty cool. I didn't even realize that. So we're going to have to do some work. We have height of 96 on this turn. So let's grab that 96 and bring everything out here, including what's in between. To the 96 level, but it immediately goes up. So once we get around the corner, we got to do a lot of smoothing, but we're going up pretty high. So what that means is, let's do the flat parts first. It's always easy to get a better judge. This one's at 126, so we'll bring this up to 126. What it means is we should be able to Yeah, that was a little bit much. We'll get it close down there for now. Run this little ledge into the other one and have that train like wind up into the mountain. So we're replacing lower. I should be able to go right up to this here. Now it doesn't look like it's that bad of a drop, does it? So we'll blend in. Let's see, that's 126. We'll go up another 10. And we'll work back. Whoops, a little bit too big of a circle. We'll work back here a little bit. So it's all about sketching out your mountains and making everything look weird at first. Bring that into there. And we'll bring it over here too for now. That's going to need to be cut into a little bit. We'll worry about that after. So we've got several layers, and I'm actually going to do it so that is up on the side of the mountain. Let's see. We'll drop down another 10 down here. Oops, that's not the 10. Must be 116. One of the things about this map too that I'm not as concerned about is I want to use a lot of the landscape for decoration. I think with PV Rivers there was so much to do that we had so many fields that I don't even know if anybody's ever used them all. Let's see, I need a new mouse also. Yeah, this one's the amount of clicking I do the buttons tend to wear out pretty quick. You use the Idaho 4x4 map and put the little map in the middle, and I got crops all over that are growing. Can't seem to get rid of the Idaho out of the little map. If you go back, the field markers are what determine with the crops growing. I imagine you have the mission data because the field markers are still there. That's something a lot of people have done by dropping the map in. You can see that there's no fields drawn, and I'll give you an example when I copied this in because I had to rework a lot of it. Let's go back up to find my field definitions. Pick a field that I don't think I got to field 4 yet. Where is 4? Way over there. So you can see I didn't redraw the fields in, but the field markers, corner 1, now they hold the field data in the field definition for the missions. So because these markers for corner 1, corner 2, and corner 3 exist, it has a defined field area, and if you look under the field number 4, you will see some mission data where the vehicle spawns and the NPC index. And that means the field's going to draw in there when it's not owned, regardless of it not actually being there. And that's where a lot of people don't realize. So they figure they delete everything, they'll work on the fields later, but they're still all appearing. It's because the field indexes now hold all that data. Yep, the Idaho fields are covering the Goldcrest fields. Chances are the field definitions have to be redone. All those points. You don't know if you have the patience. There's a lot of patience involved, that's for sure. And one of the things you'll notice with me is I don't have the patience. I do have an extreme amount of patience for this stuff. But even with me, it just does get to you after a while. So I tend to jump around. You know, there's only so much of doing mountains in a day that I can handle as opposed to doing something else. So I jump around and do different parts of the map. I'll go back and start drawing those fields in when I'm ready, until but I know that certain things need a lot more attention, like those splines are going to be forever and a week if I don't keep up on them at least a little bit here and there. So I do tend to keep that in mind. But yeah, things like drawing the mountains are a little bit more fun because you start to see your landscape take in shape and how we're just building into the other side of the map there with the little plateaus on the way down, a little bit steeper in some areas, but doing the different levels, blending everything in, adding the little details works out pretty good. And we're going to have a relatively nice transition down to an area down here that has the train riding along the edge for a little bit. Oh, we left a hole in there. That's what happens. That's where the smooth tool comes in very handy. We have to work some more because we got to bring this level to that level. It's just working in the levels, getting them back to where we want. But every step of the way, you get a little bit further along, and you can decide just how rough you want to have your hills, or if you want to have pretty steep stuff going on. Details. Right now, it's like I said, it's rough design. I may decide that I want to flatten an area up here and put a nice shop on the corner. You just don't know. But getting the rough design and getting the map to look good is part one. So now we can start coloring these in, and you'll see I left these nice ridges because of the flat areas that we can put some trees on, like on the other side, and have the train run right through there. Color it back up. It's going to look pretty cool. We've got lots of work to do, but mountains in this should be pretty awesome when it's done. Let's see, where do I want to work next? Decisions. I guess we'll level this piece of track because it's a curve. Get some more leveling done. What height is it at? 116. Well, that was quick. That's the difference between using the higher values and the lower values. How fast that jumps up. And yeah, we came pretty close to messing up that road over there. Let me go and take off my replace limit. Grab some of this. Whoops, not like that. There we go. We're going to have to blend that together, and it's a pretty small area. Once again. And this is interesting because we have this crazy transition area where everything's coming together. Whoops, didn't want to go there. So we have to kind of just get all the edges done and then make it work. Let me grab a square piece here. I'm going to edge this out a little bit. We'll work that out afterwards. Lots of different pieces at different heights. What do we have for the road height? Oh boy. Actually, it's right there. Not too bad. It's the same height as the city on this end. Or the main highway. So that'll look pretty good. You could see the grass starting to pop up through. When we get into underneath this whole section, that's another day and a half in itself. So we'll just worry about this right now. Ah, this lovely area. Let's get into it with smaller circle. And much smaller detail. 0.3s again I'm going to use. And I'm going to use my add brush and start bringing the terrain under the track right up to where it needs to be or close to it. Fill in this a little bit. Not too concerned with too much of what's around it as much as getting the track close to the surface. Let's see. What do we have in the chat? Right. Just hope there will be field areas where smaller fields which cost less will be lined up with other fields so they can later be easily joined. That's usually what I try to do. Mud in between. Screw the mud. And we have Nicro Icobos or something like that. Thank you for the follow. Also, I missed Big Will 2016. Came in another just before the broadcast, I think. Thank you both for the follows. I don't know. Yeah, putting mud in between fields would kind of mess up the ability to combine them together in this game. All right. What a transition mess we've got going on here to work out. That is definitely going to be a challenge. So, let's try to take a smooth tool and get this so it's bringing it down a little bit. We've got a lot of work around the track to do. Yeah, when you start getting all these areas that come together, when it's done, it's going to be cool. We'll have some pretty cool detail into the map, but doing it is another thing. We got to bring it so it all like blends together in a nice area over here. And this is where we'll get some of those rock ledges that come in, and even underneath the road we're going to have it be rocks, so we can smooth that down a little bit too. We got to bring in the bridge wherever it may be on the map. And then start working in all this ugliness. Filling in the gaps by smoothing everything out. Making it all blend together like it is one seamless terrain. Without too many of those bumps that you guys just love to drive on when I leave them behind. Now I'm still using the little bit of smoothing, not over heavy smoothing because of the fine area that I'm working in, but means I just got to go over it more and more, and it drives you nuts after a while. But this area is so thin in here. I want a cool transition. And that's what I got to do a lot of. You guys have seen it. We'll be doing this for weeks on end, as you could tell by looking around this map. We're going to have a pretty cool looking area over here, it looks like. Let's bring up the smooth to pretty bad for this side a little bit. Now this is a little bit close here, but it'll give us a kind of a cool little, you can see the hole I left doesn't want to smooth out. There we go. It'll give us a nice ridge over here too, because there's not a lot that we're going to be able to do in here, it looks like, but we do definitely want some decorative area. It's just a lot that's going to be coming together in this little area here. It'll be a kind of a cool valley, I think, when we're done. Let's go back to small. Finish up getting this track. That was Lars' idea. Add please. Maybe a little bit bigger than 2 on the circle. That would be nice. So you're going to run into those situations where you take away, as you're smoothing these out, you're taking away more than you want. You've got to bring it back. Eventually just work in smaller area. You'll get it. You'll get it there. It's not fun, but if you're putting in these tracks and stuff and you want to add some detail rather than making them all flat, you gotta do it. So I add a little back, and actually you can see this side is even way out of whack too. Let's get some back in there. And sometimes you just do it until it looks right. Now that looks pretty good. Fill in this. We're going to go much smaller circle and try to smooth on top of the track. And it's all these little tiny divots that will drive you nuts. And again, there may be easier ways, but I haven't found them. And there may be people better at this whole part than me. I'm sure there are. They can have better systems to get it done faster. But self-taught, you work with what you know. You know? And practice, and you guys will find, I mean, I have people teaching me things all the time on how to do this, and I've been doing it for 3 years, still learning, and looking in the forums to find answers when I don't have them, almost on a daily basis. It's quite the process. Like right now I don't know how to actually, I can add the multi-fruit into the map, but I don't know how to do the script. I'm waiting for somebody out there, somebody that knows script writing, to make a multi-fruit script, or at least point me how to do it, so I can start getting the crops into the map themselves and do some factory tests and all that fun stuff with the new UPK. And there are still several bugs. I don't know if you guys have... Is anybody having issues? Because we are on our server game, even though I haven't been on the server. With animal breeding on the pigs and the animals, do they breed on anybody on their servers? Are they breeding? Just curious. Works fine in uh, single player, but the server doesn't seem to be updating with new animals being born and stuff. At least it's not on the display. I don't know if anybody's heard if that's a giant's bug that they know about, or if it's intended, or what the deal is with that. Love to know that. Also, moving things like bunkers and stuff with the new way they have the collision on the sides so stuff won't slip through. Sometimes just moving them, it doesn't update for some reason correctly. So I got to figure out a little bit of that before too long. But the good news is I have about at least a few more weeks of terrain editing for those answers to come about. And definitely plenty of design work for the next couple months that we have to work on. So those answers will come along and we'll have them when we need them, I'm sure. A little bit low right there. And I think if I can get that back to normal, then we should be pretty good in this area. You never know, too, when you do this stuff, if it's going to look good when you get inside the map. Sometimes you miss stuff visually because it's so hard in the editor to really get an idea of what it looks like until you're actually driving on it. You'll miss that big bump that's in the road or in a hillside that you didn't notice, or a divot. I could see it dips in right here a little bit. We don't want big divots along the track. But let's paint up some of the sides of this and see what it looks like. Did it ones, please, or we'll be here all day painting. Now, it's not painting there because it apparently is a pretty low slope, which is kind of, or are we at 45? Slope limit, replace limit, mountain rock. Yeah. Just found it odd that that's actually not painting in over here. It's not a 45-degree angle slope, which is good. Don't need everything to be on a 45. It'll give us more grass on the map. I thought for sure that now if I want to get some detail in, I can drop this down to 35 and get this ridge painted in. So we have a little bit of detail around the top track coming down as well. But you could definitely see a divot right here. So we're going to try to pull it out of the ground a little bit. And there's some craziness going on over here. So you guys could actually probably easily understand why I say I don't know what my maps are going to look like until they're done. Because I got an idea. Things are where I want them to be, but so much of the terrain that takes place in between these areas, we got a chunk here to do, is all dependent on how things come out pretty randomly. You know, sides of the mountains. I might want to add some more grass in. It looks kind of a little bit too much rock in some of these areas. So what I will do is cut back in a couple of these areas and just grab my grass and, whoops, switch tools. Repaint this area in grass. I want to break it up so it's not as rocky in here. And I will be doing adjustments like this throughout the process. And you could go and take the height. Let's see if this works. Control R. Replace. It's tough sometimes getting that in there. What this is going to do is help me get a better ledge. We'll smooth it back down. But I just wanted to get a little bit more grass in this hillside than there is rock, because it's very rocky. So I added a little bit of ledges in there. Let's take my grass, paint it out a little bit again with the add tool. And we will go back with 45-degree slope and repaint the mountain rock and see what we have now. We should have a couple more of those little grass plateaus in the side of this hill, breaking up all the rock a little bit, which we do. Looks a little better, I think. Yeah, so I can plant trees. We'll do a lot of that down the road, but we'll just grab trees and duplicate it. And in these flat green areas, we will put some trees in different sizes to give the mountains their look back. And once that's done, it'll be pretty cool. We'll get different sized trees in. Yeah, I'm digging it. Okay. Another transition here. We'll work this one out and fill in this area, and that probably might be it for tonight. We'll see. How long it takes. Alright, let's see. It's gonna be Ectomo. Take a dirt bike down that hill. Suggestion: we have a central mountain with an odd-shaped small farm with road up to it, of course, but make it to where the road is the only safe way to go up and down. There are definitely going to be other farms on, and there may be farms up on the hillside as well, but I tried that in my volcano island. I had a farm up on the side of the volcano, and believe it or not, a lot of people did not care for that extra challenge, going up and down the volcano every time they wanted to go to their fields. So I don't know if we'll go there, but there's going to be paths and roads and everything all over. The terrain is going to be pretty awesome when it's done in here, and there's definitely going to be a lot of it to traverse. And I gotta find at least, I think we're gonna do 5 farms, I guess. Big Daddy said 5, so I gotta listen to the staff here a little bit. 5 is a good number for me. I don't even decide where things go until I get to that point. It's just one of those things that I don't want to... I look at the landscape after it's designed and say, okay, This looks like it would be a good place for a BGA or a good place for an animal farm and that sort of thing. I don't like to make those decisions until I have to. And then I just, yeah, it makes it easier sometimes to decide those types of things based on the size and the shapes of the areas where you want big fields when the landscape is done. Position in relation to other items too, you know, got to take all that into account. You don't want, for instance, your sell point for animals to be right next to your animal. Well, some people would like it, I'm sure, but I would not like to have my sell point for animals right next to where the animals are bred. So let's get back down there with some smoothing. Yeah, also same way with shipping stuff. There's no sense of having a shipping depot right across from where everything has to go. It would just make no sense. You know me, I like to make you guys drive around a little bit. I'm not going to have the animals all in one place like a lot of people put them, and there's actually two reasons. Actually, the main reason why I don't do it is because I don't like it. Makes it too easy, and also if you're having multiple players, I like to have them spread out so that different people can operate the different animals if you want to choose that way, rather than them all being on the same farm. Second reason, though, and the more important reason that I use as the excuse for not doing it, is that animals moving in the same area, which we did do on rivers. We put them all close together, and everybody knows that they lag in that animal area. Their frames drop tremendously. With this new engine, I'm going to try to pull off a lot more detail, and that is going to require us to keep those animals separate on this map for sure. I mean, it's just one of those things. Central, north, south, east, west, well, maybe close to that, yeah. We'll decide where they go based on the terrain, and I look for interesting stuff as well. We're going to keep the original farm in here with several modifications to the area. I mean, with all this expanded land, we can take out a field if we want to expand that farm inside the center. But we're going to keep that. We want to keep it with some pretty amazing changes for more vehicles. I already have a good idea what I want to do with it. And maybe we'll jump into that to finish up a little bit. Because I'm actually going to be able to, with a little bit of loss, but I did the test. Basically, I'm going to lose whatever crops. So after a good harvest, without replanting, I'm going to be able to convert my current save game, because this essentially is just a bigger version of Goldcrest right now, over to this map. I gotta edit a couple XML files, but I've done it. It can be done. I just gotta pick the point during my save game to do it. So with that being said, I want to make my farm a little bit nicer before I go there. That is looking close to level. We've got some funkiness going on. Let's see. I'm going to grab my replace lower so I don't mess up the upper cliff there. Yeah. Not what I wanted to do. There we go. get this extended out a little bit over here without messing up the higher levels that are around it. Here, could use a little bit bigger brush. What do we got going on? Mostly just a level here. Lots of land in between. And again, you can see I'm going to have to repaint that ledge because I got carried away and did it a little bit too soon. But I'm good with that. I just want to get it so I can smooth this out a little bit. I'm going to bring it out even further. Give me some room to work with it. On this side. I'm not exactly sure how much I want to smooth that down yet. There's going to be a lot of flat area over here, that's for sure. And eventually we got to bring this down, but I'm not going to do that one tonight. Got to bring that ramp in, but I'm kind of just focusing on this little certain area here, so let's smooth the rest of this down in and see what we end up with. We have a little hill here. We could actually have taken this all right out, but I kind of think it might be worth having later. We'll see. Really doing the randomness, being on the creative side, you kind of, as you're doing this, I'm thinking, something might end up, with all these weird curves. It might, down the road, be a really cool backdrop for a house up here or something, not necessarily farming land, but again, maybe one of the farms. You'll have multi-lay. I could see it now, a road coming in across the railroad tracks or wherever. I don't know where we'll bring the road in, but you got a flat plateau right here you could put stuff on with the railroad track running behind the house and silos or whatnot up along, and just flatten out different areas of the mountainside to build a farm up here. Something might happen like that. Be kind of a cool little area once we're done. That's why not having everything flat, I could see something sitting. Might not be a farm, but I could definitely see something on this section overlooking the city and having the farmers' fields down there. Let's see, I think most folks want small, cheap fields that are lined up. Yeah, that's what I tend to do. That way you can choose. It will have big fields as well. They're definitely, because I don't want to have a ton of fields, but I will have probably more so medium-sized fields that can be combined into larger ones with large fields on the outside. We have enough of it. We're keeping most of the small fields that are central, the Goldcrest Valley size fields. On the outside, we're going to see a little bit bigger in some areas, but every farm needs to have small enough fields to get started and to have fields that don't cost you $20 million to purchase right off the bat. Let's see. Yeah, small fields set up and aligned. And we have a follower, Valentine 11 or Valentine GG11. Thank you for the follow. Did you get your bunker open? Try from both angles. Both sides of the bunker. I had the same issue. I could not open it from one side, but I drove the loader around to the other side, and it worked just fine. For some reason. Let's go over here to the main farm, wherever it is. Which, it's in here somewhere, right? I know it's here. Alright. So, this is your original farm. It is definitely too cramped for me, and I'm not exactly 100% sure what I'm going to do, but I do believe, unlike a lot of people, I got to draw the fields in still. I do like the pad and the. I find this barn way over here to be completely useless for me. I never use it. I don't know about you guys. It just seems so like crowded and hidden over here. I'm thinking of, if you notice, there's a pretty good size area over here below this railroad track that's up on top. I'm probably going to cut back in, have a little bit of a slope down behind, but cut back in here and move garages or something over here. I would also like to replace this one with one of those pull-through ones. Maybe put this one on the across the road so that you can go back and forth. I mean, right now I line all my equipment up in this area for extra space right now as it is. I'm not going to do that right now, but there's definitely a lot of room for messing with the new farm. There's a lot of space around with the old farm, and most of that space can come in this transition area without it really being too bad of. I mean, that's quite a large area if you're in game, believe it or not, from the road. If you walk up till you get back to that railroad track, where we could literally just, for instance, quick demo. Let's see, replace limit lower. No, we don't want to replace that. We want to replace. Yeah. And we'll take away the limit. I could see us easily redoing the mountain just a little bit back across from this lot. And opening up definitely enough space here. I actually could do it right up coming around this corner to put barns or whatever. I'm going to take that last piece out just so I don't have to redo the road. Grabbing our small round tool here, I'm going to just leave it like this anyway because I'm pretty sure this is what I want. And smooth this back edge. Let's see. We'd need to remove these trees out of the way. And we'll move the rock down to the corner here. We're about where it's going to start. Get rid of these. And we'll put the other rock down here and remove everything in between them. So at this point, I've got a couple trees that are probably floating. Yeah, back here because we cut back into this hillside a little bit. Got to make sure they're out of there. Some they might not be, but I'm just clearing it back a little because I do want to get a better looking edge on that part. I don't want it to be a complete Whoa, don't want to do that either. Complete straight drop off. Let's get the grass painted back in. Add. And remove my slope limit so it paints. Then I can see what I left behind. I think there's some stuff. It's a floating bush. Can't have a floating bush. I'm sure there will be enough of those around when we're done. They're easy to miss. Alright, so we got a bigger area here, right across the street from the main farm, which I haven't decided whether I want to move the silo into, so you could pull up along the side of the street and dump off into your silo. Maybe alongside the silo have the chicken coop. I don't know yet, but I know that there's enough room over here to definitely give our farm some room. Let's get that slope limit back on without altering too much of the terrain, and this will be behind it. And we still didn't cut into the railroad track, but we have enough room there to... Let's go to our rough dirt and replace... Now, one of the things you can do as well, so you don't climb up the walls, is you can do a slope limit end at 45, and it kind of reverses it. 0 to 45 means that I can't go up the walls with the dirt. It'll only hit, well, I can on the flat area up there if you go over crazy, but if I stay down here, I can fill this area in with dirt and it won't climb up the wall when I get close to it. And we can put some detail into this area later. I'm just doing it for now. Give you guys a look. There will be buildings or sheds over here, or we can even put some of the terrain there, cement into this area. But definitely a lot of room there that we just opened up for this farm, so you'll be able to... I think the silo might be a good idea. Floating bush. Don't forget to save, just in case. We'll get to a save. Even if we just got the chickens over to this side of the road, if we can move the house down and expand our lot into some of this area or whatever, maybe the barn, I don't know yet. I'll decide on that a little bit later. I might just put one of these barns here. Let's see. Very simply, we could rotate that by 90 degrees, well, minus 90. You can see there's plenty of room over here to have across the street parking for vehicles if we wanted to do vehicles, and they're well off the road, or for maybe silos for dumping stuff. There's definitely going to be plenty of room to get a couple of these in if we wanted to. I am not doing a lot of this stuff right now because I want to see what other mods and shelter types we come out in the near future. But it gives you an idea how much room we can have just across the street. We'll add some detail back in. One of the things I never showed you guys is the pig mud layer, which does add detail. It's under terrain, and it's called pig mud, and it's kind of cool because you can kind of, although I might have too many, I do in some circles you have too many terrain types to do it here. Let's go up here though. Good thing to do little drops of it on like a path. You see, that's that mud you see laying around, and it gives a little bit of detail to these. I haven't gone through and redid all that yet, but it's a mud detail that you can put onto paths. A lot of different ways to give your place a lot of detail. Unfortunately, this chunk will not take it because we already have grass, rough dirt, mountain rock, so many layers in between. So those are the ones we're going to have to work with. Grass, rough dirt, gravel. I guess, where's the gravel? It's on the railroad track up above, so we got to keep that too. Alright, anyhow, I think, what is it? 8, 9, oh, we got about 10 minutes. Anybody have any questions? Oh, you have a question from your community. As soon as the scripts are done for FS17, is there a possibility to port PV15? Well, here's the thing with PV15. Ports are possible, I believe, right? It can't be ported the way it is. There's going to be a lot of work to port it over. And the reason being is that you can't run scripts from a map now. I don't know if you are aware of that. You can write as many, but they cannot be run from inside a map. There has to be a workaround. The UPK kit has always been its own mod where the scripts run. You can point to a mod from the map to run a script, and the UPK kit will work, which is I think what everything on PV15 version 2 runs on the UPK for the most part anyway, so that does make it easier to transfer everything over. However, there's going to be several adjustments and I haven't tested it yet. Who knows? Maybe someday, if somebody wants to tackle the project, I have no problem with it. Just let me know that you're working on it. The terrain, we've already discussed how to switch. If you watch my converting a map over, you can literally do the same process. In my very first video before I started the making of this, to start the transfer process. But when it gets to the factories, the UPK kit's going to have to run. I don't know. There are several other scripts that run in that map that cannot be run. The fabric script is one of them. We have to see if that comes out as a standalone as well. Let's see, what am I doing over here? I wanted to draw this field back in while we have time. What field number are you? Number 12. There it is, corner 1. So yeah, it could be quite the job to convert it. A lot of it might have to be removed. I can't, it's been so long since I did PV15 that I can't recall exactly if it can be completely, what parts would have to be cut out. I'm just going to draw in the regular farm fields here real quick. Let's see. I can tell where they used to be by the markers, and I basically need to get them in, and I definitely want my texture, I think, to be going the other way, which I think was 6. Yes, it is. I remembered for once. And we can carry it out just a little bit further. To corner 2, which is over there. So if you were watching earlier versions, they're all on YouTube, by the way. If you missed anything, this is episode 4. I'll be back on Wednesday night as well. They're usually 3 or more hours of me sitting here doing this crazy stuff. But I've done this all once before. The conversion to make sure we could have more fruit types on the map, I had to redo and remove this whole layer because the file would not convert over. And they still haven't fixed that issue, so I must redraw all my fields back in exactly where they were, and I don't have to remove the markers because the missions and everything are set up on the markers. I don't want to mess with the original ones as little as possible anyway. Let me get a bigger square. It's easier to fill in later. So we've done a lot of this already. I just have to redo it all. 31 fields. I think this is number 4 out of 31. Like I said, I jump around because there's only so much of certain things that you can do without getting tired of them. So corner 2 to corner 3. And we have to go a little bit further. And I'm okay with overhanging a little bit. It's better to have the overhang than be short, especially when the mission pops up on the field. This is one of the easy ones. The square fields are very easy to do. However, this field should be planted, so I probably made a goof already. I could have, and probably should have, done this field, because this is one of our starting fields, in fertilize mode, which is 3, I think. Add fertilizer to it, and isn't there... No, don't want that one. 3, 4? Nope. Don't want that one. 3, 5? No, that's angled. Okay. 3 works. We can fertilize it, so... But isn't there a cultivated texture? Or is that the cultivated texture? I can't remember. I guess that's the cultivated texture, but it's not the seeded texture. And I thought there was a bit that we could get the seeded texture. Nah, well, I'm not going to worry about it. At least it'll be fertilized when you start. And planted. Planted in what? I'm not sure, but it will be planted. I've been toying with the idea. I wish I could figure it out. The biogas plant, everybody, well, not everybody, but we make biogas, but it actually doesn't make biogas. I wish I could do something with that, the BGA, to create our fuel this time. A little bit something different. But I can't seem to find a way to edit the actual BGA to do it. Not only output the slurry and stuff, but output fuel as well. However, I could recreate one and put a second one on the map that works the same way, but allows you to dump your silage into and actually output fuel using the UPK or another trigger set down the road. Just something I've been thinking about, possibly, to make things a little bit different. Also being able to dump the sugar cane or corn in there to convert into fuel as well, and output slurry on that one, so you'd have like a second BGA. Just something throw out there, see what you guys think. Wanted to mix things up a little bit this time. It just seems weird that we're creating biogas and we can't use biogas for our vehicles. You know, there's been a BGA in the map forever. So that's one of them done. Let's see. Field 11. I think the one back there with the is field 14. Is that one field 4? Yes, it is. Let's do this one up. I know there's a lot of people that love to run their BGAs. And this one doesn't want to be fertilized because you don't, well, you'll own it, but you're not going to, I don't know if it's going to be planted at this point, so we'll leave it unfertilized for now. I may have to go back and do it. I just always thought, hey, we've been running BGAs. Wouldn't it be great if they actually were done for the fuel process? We might be able to do something with that down the road. I'm actually enjoying the game this time around. I'm not enjoying some of the bugs that I come across, specifically with hired workers. Man, found one in the lake the other day. I was using a hired worker to run a windrower. Yeah, apparently windrowers don't like to. The hired worker will do fine, but he doesn't know when to stop. And one of the oilseed refineries. Yeah, I want to keep the. I like the BGA the way it works. I don't want to mess with that. I was hoping I could add a second product type to the existing BGA. I may relocate it so there's more grass around it. Who knows? But the BGA runs its own BGA on Create script, and without a script writer to give me a copy of that one edited, I'll have to look at it. We could always point to it in our. Well, we can't. It's right. You can't run your own scripts in a map, so I guess that won't work. Let's see. We gotta go a little further here. But it'd be nice to be able to output your own product, gas. Isn't that what they're for, the BGA? Dun, 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 dun. Let's fill in the square. Undocumented features. That's a good way to call it. Undocumented features. What about those crashes that I see people having when they... How about the exploits? There's an exploit. Is that an undocumented feature? The one that allows you to harvest fields at full speed? I'm not going to give you any more details how to do it, because if you're desperate for it, only when you're doing missions. The information's out there. Alright, so I'm going to do something real quick here because I got to check something out. And at this point, this is the easiest way for me to check it out. This is just a temporary... I want to see what happens. If it works or not. I don't know. It's not looking as clear as I would have hoped. Yeah, I might replace it. There was a flag here. I tried to replace it with my own logo, but it's the blue flowers and the white flowers really aren't standing out very well, so you can read it. I don't know how it would be. You can see M-O-D-S and D-A-J-N-E-T, Dadgenet Mods, in blue and flowers, blue and white. But I'll think of something else to put there. Just wanted to check that out. It doesn't look like it's as clear as I would like. I might put the flag back. Who knows? I might just change the colors and see if I can get it to pop a little bit better. But you can alter that with the flower DDS file. Has an image. I don't know if you guys were aware of that. But that's the way we'll end the show. Let me save. And once that's saved, we will show you. Actually, I could probably do it while it's saving. Inside your map01 folder, there's this crazy grass flowers color DDS file. And I had to size ours up, so it's basically a map of what color the flowers will be on the map in certain areas. And I noticed, as I zoom in, that there was an American flag in the middle. And whatever I put in that square right here will show up on field 14 because that's the exact location of field 14. So we'll work it out and see if I can get something else in there that's pretty cool. But I imagine if you got the exact coordinates of any field, you can do your own little designs, but I'm not going to go that's a whole nother thing. It is kind of cool though the way they put the flower dots so the different areas, different colors of flowers will grow in the grass. Pretty cool stuff. Mess around with that. And with that, we'll be back on Wednesday, probably at 8 p.m. again as well. And we'll see you guys Wednesday. We'll do Friday again this week too. And then we'll see about the weekend, what comes on after that. So I'll see you guys Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Thank you for watching. Anybody that followed, thank you for the follows. I'll get everything flooded as soon as I log off. Any donations that came in, if any, thank you very much. And we'll catch you all later.